thought it'd be helpful just to give you guys a little bit of an understanding as to what the University of Southampton has in place to support students affected by sort of harassment and sexual misconduct. I will share my screen. I just wanted to check if my colleagues Martin and Marie are currently present on the meeting at the moment. I have a feeling they both aren't. And if not, that's fine. I can just present and I will answer any questions at the end. And if anyone has any questions I can't answer, I will ask my colleagues to sort of clarify those questions when they can join the meeting. Also, my internet connection is very poor, so please do put into the chat whether you know, I start to buffer. So I will, yeah, I'll help in that way. Okay, so I'll just share my screen now. So please let me know if you can see my screen. Is that all good? Can someone just let me know?
Yeah, that's fine, Lena, yes.
Okay, that's great. So yeah, we thought it'd be important to just let you guys know about how we are sort of tackling hate crime, especially within student services and essentially our wellbeing team at the University of Southampton. So just moving on, so I thought it'd be interesting to give you guys a bit of context to my role and my colleague Marie's role. So the Office for Students essentially put out some expectations of on higher education, so universities and colleges. They basically offered universities and colleges funding to help prevent and address harassment and sexual misconduct. So that's essentially where my role has come from. So I'm a tackling harassment advisor. My role was introduced during sort of early this year, and my colleague Marie, her role was also introduced during this year as well. So essentially my role is to deal with something called Report and Support, which is a reporting tool, and I'll go into more detail about that in a minute. My colleague Marie, her role is a sexual harassment and violence support practitioner, so she deals with sort of cases of assault, sexual misconduct, harassment, and essentially she provides sort of short-term well-being support to students at the university. And my role is more so to sort of support students through the discipline process and to ensure that they've got sort of the right support in place for them throughout that process. As we understand that sort of going through a discipline process can be very stressful and in some situations quite traumatic for students. So yeah, so if you want to read up a little bit more on sort of what the Office of Students have put down for expectations on higher educational institutions, that's a good reference to look at. Moving on, so how can a student report a hate crime at the University of Southampton? So we've introduced the Report and Support tool, and this is a common reporting tool that is used across most universities across the country. We introduced it back in March, and we introduced it alongside our Expect Respect campaign, which is our anti-harassment campaign. So the Report and Support tool has only been running for I'd say just over 6 months. You know, it's an opportunity for staff and students to report anything named or anonymously. And essentially part of my role is to make contact with students and to sort of discuss what they've reported through the tool and to put in place sort of support around the discipline process, around their mental health and well-being and their academic studies, and also to refer them to sort of external services if needed. My colleague in our HR team deals with staff reports, so I only deal with purely student reports. But yeah, we do also support staff members, and not all universities offer that. So at Southampton, we thought it was important to make sure that we had that, you know, that option for staff members to also report. So we have a student discipline team, and we also have our student advice centre. So students don't necessarily need to go through Report and Support to report misconduct. They can go directly to our student discipline team. And most students that go directly to the student discipline team, it's usually when they know that they want to put an allegation in. Usually Report and Support is sort of a first step for students to find out about the student discipline process, and to sort of look at their options and to explore their options. But if a student is sort of, they know that they want to report something, they can go straight to the discipline team and get that process started quite soon. I've mentioned the SUSU Advice Centre because SUSU essentially is detached from the university, so it gives students the opportunity to go and seek advice from people that aren't necessarily attached to the university. So you won't always get students wanting to come to, for example, myself, as I sit within the student discipline team. So it might be a case that it's sort of good for students to know what their options are, essentially, in terms of, whether they have to go through the university or if they can go to the advice centre. And yeah, essentially they'll get supported through that way. We've also worked with Southampton Hate Crime Network to create a third-party hate crime reporting centre. So Building 37, which is our student services building, is a hate crime reporting centre. So that means that students, staff and members of the public can essentially come into the building and report a hate crime. So yeah, essentially we have sort of wellbeing advisors present during sort of out of hours times, and there's also myself. So in sort of office hour times, if I'm available, I will support anyone affected by a hate crime. So yeah. So this is our sort of report and support page. I also put a QR code on the previous slide, just to give you guys a little idea of what our page looks like. We also have some information around support. So sort of the areas that we support students on, we've provided information, definitions, just so that people know the sort of support that they can access around those topics. And of course, when someone's reported something, the university essentially supports their well-being, because it can be very traumatic. So I thought I'd just give you a bit of an understanding as to the sort of well-being support that we have at the university. So we have a well-being outreach team, which is a 24/7 well-being team. So they can be accessed, all throughout the day, all throughout the night. They can be accessed in person or via telephone. And in some situations, if students are quite distressed and they need support in their halls of residences, then people within our wellbeing outreach team can essentially go to the halls of residences and meet with that student. Our wellbeing outreach team don't go outside of sort of, to private accommodation, but they're happy to meet students at halls of residences. We also have practitioner support. So essentially practitioners offer short-term support, and that can mean that they sort of go through techniques and they sort of address the problems that students are having. So they'll put techniques in place, they'll sort of refer to different organisations if needed. And depending on sort of the student's needs, they will try to sort of meet them and try to get that student into sort of a better place going forward. We also have our university counselling service, and we offer 6 free sessions for students that want to access counselling. So a lot of the time practitioners may refer students to our counselling service if needed. We've also worked with Yellow Door to ensure that we have an ISVA on campus. So we've got a contract with Yellow Door at the moment where we have an ISVA present on campus every Monday. That ISVA will either have, a drop-in or booked scheduled appointments with students, and they will essentially offer sort of support to students that might want to access ISVA support or support just generally from Yellow Door. And of course, we work with sort of external services as well. So practitioners might refer students to sort of steps to wellbeing. I might liaise with the police on various different things. We also work quite closely with Yellow Door, of course, as we have an ISVA on campus. And we also do work with, mental health nurses that are in GP practices. So, yeah. That's just a bit about the support that we have with regards to sort of wellbeing support. And of course, I just thought I'd give you a little bit of an insight as to what we did for Hate Crime Awareness Week. So we did run an event on pledges. So we asked students to make a pledge and to pop it on a board. And it was quite a good event in the sense that we got students to sort of engage in talking about hate crimes and how they could support others within the community. And we hope to do something on a bit more of a larger scale, next year, hopefully. So that's just a little bit about what we've been doing at the University of Southampton. And of course, myself and Marie will be sort of working on various other topics linked to sort of harassment and sexual misconduct. We will be running events, and we will be trying to sort of, work on our project, work around the university to sort of create a more secure environment for our students. So that's a little bit about what we're doing at the moment. If anyone's got any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Here. So since our last meeting, through the Love Don't Hate app, which has obviously been developed for reporting of hate crimes, we have seen reports through the app, albeit as we've discussed at previous meetings, we are looking at long-term developments of the app and potentially having a new app to improve reporting. But at the moment, we are still seeing reports through the app, which is an encouraging sign. So at the end of August, we had 9 reports through the app, and then that was increased to 16 in September 2021, as you can see. And then, in October 2021, there was 22 reports. So it's an encouraging sign that there is awareness being made about the app and people are using it, albeit we would like these numbers to be higher. But the fact that we are having reports, gives us an indication that it is something worth, pursuing for the future and potential. And it's a good avenue people can use to report hate crime. We'll keep on getting that data so we can see what what impact the app is having. And then here we have got the reported hate crimes in Southampton. I'm going to get a breakdown up in a second, but as you can see, in the third quarter, from July to September 2021, we had 243 reported hate crimes that Hampshire Police recorded, and that was across a number of different strands. On average, we are seeing that there's over 200 reports per quarter. Obviously, you can look at this two ways, in the sense that there are high numbers of hate crimes, but at the same time, that we can see that people are reporting it. So and that's obviously what we want. So we do see that those numbers in a positive sense. I will now just bear with me, get up the breakdown of those stats, and Ahmed can potentially talk about those if there's any other points. So just bear with me, get those up. So this is the period we were talking about, from July to September of this year. And see, there's 243 total. But don't know if Ahmed, there were any points you wanted to raise about those, the stats we've got here.
No, thanks, Sam. I mean, the only thing I would like to say is, for those who are not already familiar in the fact that Southampton, as one of the busiest districts in the Hampshire Police, because of its huge diversity as a city, tends to get the largest proportion of hate crime incidents. And because of the work the members of the third-party reporting network do throughout the year, we also get the highest proportion of reported hate crime. So for me, I look at it in a positive way, in the sense that we are, as a network, working towards encouraging anyone who experiences hate crime to consider reporting it. And as you all know, we have a number of options to report hate crime. And anybody who's not familiar with these options, I'm sure Sam and I would be very happy to talk them through them.
Number 11 on the agenda is just looking forward to next year. What should we be doing that we're not doing now? So suggestions of what we could be doing in the new year as well. As Sam said, not just National Hate Crime Week, but throughout the year.
So Breakout, we did a session on hate crime. So what protected characteristics were, Equality Act, what was a hate crime definition, how that is different from bullying, where young people go to report it, how they felt confident in the school, if they're at school or education, hate crime reporting in the apps. We gave them a little, emailed out a little signposting about how to get to the apps, like the Love Date Hate app. And we also did something last week for National Anti-Bullying Week as well. So we did something very similar around bullying, because they kind of cross over for us.
That sounds really good. That sounds really good. Any other suggestions or comments what we should be doing? Not very good with silences. So let's move on to any other business.
Well, I may just sorry, yeah, I'm not just we were just on the previous point. Yeah, obviously we were talking about what we've achieved this year, but looking ahead to next year, I think there are yeah, there certainly are a number of things we want to kind of do more, and particularly those I think are around yeah, really engaging more with the community. So looking at how we do that, and obviously one of the ways will be to continue these engagement sessions, and also, you know, explore what's possible with developing a new potentially new hate crime app, to you know, not necessarily to encourage greater reporting, but also you know, raise greater awareness. So there would be some of the things we'll be working on, but I think it will be you know, there may well be other things that pop up as the year goes on. But yeah, I can see there are a few other hands raised. So I'll go to Pete White first from Clear.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Sorry, I've got a bit of a broadband issue, so that's why I haven't got the camera on. Yeah, obviously work for Clear, supporting asylum seekers and refugees. I guess my question for next year, or just question anyway, is in terms of availability of information in other languages. So obviously we deal with a lot of people whose first language isn't English, and so I just wondered what provision there would be in terms of any development or app or anything like that. As I said, I'm fairly new, so please forgive me if that already exists. I just wondered in terms of provision of information in other languages would be.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that point. I think that's a really good point, actually, because yeah, we've got a lot of materials out there, but it hasn't been you know, something we haven't managed to do really, is to get it out into other languages. You know, part of the reason just having the resources to do so, but yeah, certainly looking ahead, I think if we're thinking about the app, for example, that would be a perfect opportunity, I think, for us, as we're looking at developing something you know, almost all from scratch, really. So you know, what we would want to make sure is incorporated in that app is the ability to, yeah, you know, people to access different material resources in different languages. Yeah, as you say,
could you suggest, yeah. Sorry, Sam, speaking across you, could you suggest in the chat preferably what the languages that most commonly would be those that we should focus on?
Yes, yeah, I can do that. There's the council have produced a really helpful website around COVID-19 where different members of the community people may have seen this, shared the information in their own language. That way, for me, is quite quick and easy. It's not creating, well, when I say I do appreciate there's a lot of work done on that, but in terms of it's a script and it's a Zoom recording, which is then uploaded, is fairly straightforward if people within the community who speak those languages are able to do that. And then they can, obviously, those links can be shared. So maybe something like that might be interesting, just in terms of an overview of understanding what hate crime is, particularly if they've come from other countries where hate crime isn't, there's not an awareness of what hate crime is, or that they can actually report some of those things. They may just think it's normal. They may just think, oh, that's what people are like in this country. They shout at me, they do this, that's normal. Whereas obviously we appreciate that that isn't acceptable or normal. So, but just in terms of raising people's awareness of that. So maybe that kind of approach may be something that might be helpful. I can share the link. I'll stick the link in, but yes, thanks, Ian, as well. I will look at languages and things like that as well, but thanks.
Yeah, definitely. I think, it's a strength for the network. We have many of those resources inside the network. Zoe next, and then Abdui.
My email beeps that exact second. So this might sound, I don't want to make myself sound stupid, because that's always a very uncomfortable place to be. But Breakout are a hate crime reporting centre, and I have a general understanding of what that means, but actually I think that probably has more layers than I really fully appreciate. So actually what I would be interested in for myself and my team is some sort of guidance, training around being a hate crime reporting centre specifically. That might already exist, and I might be showing my absolute ignorance. If I am, I'm not really as stupid as I might sound right now, only sometimes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you certainly don't sound stupid, by the way. I think
Okay,
there is a training course, but we should be providing more of it. I think that's the message. So that's certainly a good suggestion for next year. There is a training pack we already have. We have done some, but not for a while. So maybe we could put them on and invite members as well as non-members, just to send somebody along to that training event.
Of course, that'd be great, because it just increases confidence of the staff.
Yeah, definitely. I certainly echo that. Thank you.
Cool, thanks.
Abdui?